I love that music. Boy, I love that music. Hello, and welcome to night number 10 of the 12 Beers of Christmas craft beer experience presented by Brewfana. I'm your host, Brian, and I'm happy to be joined by a new co-host. She's been on the stream earlier this last week, and I haven't gotten the chance to stream with her yet. It's her third consecutive year joining us for the 12 Beers of Christmas. Please welcome my good friend, Julie. Julie, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I am doing great, ready to drink some beer, ready to talk about beer. Hello to everybody in the chat. Again, just doing such a great job checking in. California, Massachusetts,
I am I
PA.
am loving all of the Penn State love there in the chat, Brian. I don't know about you.
So yeah, I assume that has to do with the Rose Bowl that happened last
It
night.
does indeed.
And there's a brewery that's located very close to me here that is big Penn State brewery, and they were open last night. They're never open on Mondays. And even when I was getting ready for the stream and I had my noise canceling headphones in, I could hear people shouting, "We are!" at the brewery down there. So yes,
Oh, that's great.
lots of Penn Staters checking in. Ready to drink some beers?
I am so ready. And I'm celebrating the Rose Bowl. I did go to Penn State, so I will happily cheers to that.
Both of my parents went to Penn State, so if I need college allegiance, that's what
It's
I
just
that's what I go
natural.
for.
It's
Yeah.
genetic.
They have my mom has my daughter now staying. We are Penn State. So
Penn Date.
and yeah, great. So we're back with another beer tonight, and we've got two great guests joining us to talk about, what makes for a good brewery as an employee from, the other side of the craft beer relationship, and how that company culture bleeds into a brewery's products and their taproom experience. But first, Julie, I'd love to get your thoughts on tonight's beer. I think we should dive right in.
I am so excited to do just that. So we have this American lager, and Brian's going to talk a little bit more about the breweries who made it tonight. 4.5 ABV, very crushable. We were talking earlier, and I was trying to not drink after New Year's because New Year's you have a lot, and then you wake up New Year's Day and you're like, I need a break. I'm never drinking again. I was like, this is a good one to start back in on the 3rd of January. So I made it 2 days. But yeah, I'm very
So
excited about this. I love the style. It's just classic and nice and smooth, and yeah.
somebody in the chat, Victoria, shout out. What's up, Victoria? She's saying, did you pick this beer to match your Christmas suit? Yeah,
Oh
sure.
my gosh, that's
We'll go with that.
perfect.
Yeah, we'll go with that. Totally, totally on purpose. No, mm,
Color is so nice. It's
yeah,
like nice and pale and super clear.
super clear,
Pretty.
super crisp, super drinkable.
Mm.
And yeah, I love the brewery that makes this. Fair State. We talked to my good friend John from Modest the other day, and I gloated. Yeah, that's the right term. I gloated about how much I love Twin Cities and Minnesota. I think they're so underappreciated when it comes to beer. So we're bringing another Twin Cities brewery here with Fair State. They did this collaboration with Modern Times, which is a brewery out of California. And Fair State is known because their technical name is Fair State Brewing Co-op, and they are a cooperatively owned brewery, meaning that their ownership is dispersed amongst dues paying members that then have a stake in saying what the company does and what programs they support and how they make a place in their community. Their workforce is also unionized, and they do a lot of good in their area in Minneapolis and the Twin Cities and St. Paul. And they also make exceptional beer. We talk so much about all the good breweries and the good beer that they make, but with Fair State and with other breweries as well, you can really see that culture reflected in their brands and reflected in their taproom experiences and how they deal with customers, and it really comes through. And I have a friend that works at Fair State. He's one of the owners, and he's the founding brewer. And he unfortunately couldn't join us tonight, but we wanted to talk about. We still wanted to do that talk about good company culture and how that leads into good beer. So I thought of two guys at two West Coast breweries who would be great for this conversation. One of them actually couldn't join us. His beer is featured in the box, but couldn't join us earlier when we featured their beer because he was actually at a company employee appreciation holiday party. So there's the company culture right there. But before we get into that conversation, a reminder to have your chat set to everyone so that, we can see, we can see what your comments are saying. See if we can get our chat mod up and running there. Throw your questions in the Q&A section so we can see them. When the time comes for questions, we should have our chat mod here tonight. Yes. Adrian, how's it going? I want to say hello to the folks at home that you will be moderating their chat.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to day 10. Wonderful,
Thank
beautiful night. Happy New Year. Again.
Happy New Year, Adrian. Happy to have you.
So Julie,
right.
you want to bring them on?
I will bring on our guests. One is already here, but there is another one. So let's welcome the Education Program Manager at San Diego's Pure Project, Chris I already asked him how to pronounce it, and I was about to do it wrong. Chris Leguzman, and the Director of Beer and Sales at Ben's Good Life Brewing, Mason Hart. How's it going, guys? Thanks for being here. So excited to have you. Let's get Chris on here as well. Chris L.
Cheers,
Awesome.
guys.
Perfect. Thank you for having us. We're on day 10, correct?
We are.
How do we make it so far already?
Day 10.
Look, he's doing a live opening. Look, he got himself a Fair State sticker.
This is called the unboxing.
There it is.
In a past life, Julie and I did this stream where we had unboxing. We had the box cam, official box cam.
R.I.P. box cam.
Yep.
Multi the sock puppet. Those were the days, Brian.
Multi is in my desk drawer right here, but we're not going to
Just
open
as a
up.
backup. Just in case. Just in case you don't
Bring
have
'em
photos
out.
some night.
So I mean, there's nothing special about Multi. It is literally a sock with two dots for eyes on it. So yeah, we got
It's all
real
about the
creative in
voice.
that first
It's all about the
year.
voice, Brian.
Yeah.
That's
Hi,
what
I'm
makes
Multi. Okay, well, fine. Guys, thank you both for joining us. I think we should get started with a pretty basic question to set up our discussion here, and pose this question to both of you. How does the company culture at your individual brewery get reflected in things like taproom experience or your products? And we'll start with Chris.
Yeah, totally. Hello, Chris Guzman from Pure Project, Southern California, San Diego. I do the education for the company, so education program manager. It is critical to know the purpose of what your taste room is about. So for a lot of people here, I could see some fans coming about Midwest beer, modern times. For all of us, we're beer fans. When you go into that tasting room that you've always wanted to experience, for me, it's going to be Fair State. It's going to be Barrel Theory from the Twin City. You want to go in there and you're just going to like, okay, this is what I've always been waiting for. I just drove out here. I parked the car. I'm excited. And then it falls flat. And you're just like, well, the beers were good, but everything else just kind of didn't feel right. The glassware was dirty. It wasn't presented correctly. They poured me a bunch of flights and they didn't tell me which beer was which one. And you're just looking at it, you're like, that was good. I expected way more. So for company culture, it is paramount from that guest experience to how the can is presented, all the small, minute details. This is how you echo your brand. And for many people, we no longer just want to buy for the sake of buying. We want to buy because we believe. So when you believe in what the company is doing, it echoes something more profoundly. And you're just like, hey, you know what, dude, anything that company such as Fair State makes, I'm pumped on. Why? Because the team believes it, I believe it, and we're moving forward. So having a really clear company culture really helps that consumer, which is really bombarded with a bunch of options. Dude, this is the one I want to go to. This is one I want to invite my friends out to after work.
And Mason, for you at Good Life, how do you see that company culture get reflected in those things? Taproom experience, products.
First off, I want to say, Chris, man, you hit the nail on the head with that. It really does go all the way down to the cans and everything. One thing at Good Life, we do try to educate all of our employees, not just our brewers, obviously, but our staff members, the people who are presenting your beer, pouring your beer. Not only the style of beer you're getting, but all the tasting notes behind it. So every beer we come out with, we have the full brewing specs and tasting knowledge behind it, and then we have, put it simply, the dumbed down version. We call it the pub one-liners, things like that. There's those enticing words, which honestly, for the most part in today's culture, that'll get you by. But every now and then you do come across, which I would believe everybody in this chat, everybody watching right now is part of, that craft beer culture, where they know a lot more than the average consumer, and they want to know the hops, the malts you're using, the true tasting notes, not those buzzwords. So, our director of brewing operations and our head brewer sit down. They will taste beers with our staff. We let them know. In fact, just the other day, I got a call from an account talking about one of our brands, and they're like, "Hey, we got a Pilsner from you, but it says a German lager. Is it a Pilsner or is it a German lager?" And I was like, "Oh, well, let me explain to you what a Pilsner is." And, and that alone was, here I am and now educating an account with 30 employees about the difference between a lager, a Pilsner lager, or an American lager. So that goes a long way. Again, and as you said, you've got people coming all over the country to come visit these breweries. And especially when they're in town, you want to be able to, really showcase your brand and, show off the medals you've won and things like that. So there's a reason why we do it.
I'm hearing honesty, integrity, and education are some key factors from both of you there.
Oh, absolutely. I think so.
Yeah, and just like bounce off what you're mentioning is like, one big thing is nowadays there's 10,000 breweries here in the United States. Like, what sets you apart? And nothing's worse. And this goes from both sides of the coin. This is kind of why I'm so passionate about educating my staff and just kind of educating all around on social media is, hey, like, no longer are we able just to say, hey, that's a pale ale, that's a stout, and that's our red ale. And that's it. Now there's so much more thought. There's so much more creativity. If you have the ability, talk about that grain, like for one of our beers, we just released an alt beer, which we never do.
Mm-hmm.
It's a California style. We use all of Admiral Malting. They're out of Alameda, Sacramento Valley area.
Yeah.
They use a drought resistant grain called Buddha 12, created by UC Davis. That's the extended version, but like you just say, oh, this is all California grain. That's weird. I thought it all just came from Germany or Canada. And you're just like, actually, it happens stateside. So if you have those chances, echo them, make the beer, the beverage, because there's a lot of thought behind it. Brewers put a lot of work into this, a little bit more thought, a little bit more transparency. And also for the people who are just fans, you go back to the table and you're like, hey, did you know that there's actually grain grown here in California, like to make beer? Or whatever small tidbit about Pilsner and lager, boom, you've already elevated that experience more than you could ever imagine.
Yeah, I love that. It really feels like this idea of company culture can be both internal and external. So what do you as a company do for your own people, like your holiday party, Mason, that you went to, the appreciation? That's a big part of your culture. And then that kind of bleeds into external, kind of how that's reflected to the audience or to the customer or to the guest. So it's really important that, you can see it from both sides. And I love how they play into each other too. So
I love it.
Breweries have been growing for a long time. Like you mentioned, we're close to 10,000 strong now across the country, and these breweries can start small and then kind of grow from there. So what would you say are some of those key components to a brewery maintaining that strong culture during those periods of growth? Because that can be really tricky.
Well, Chris, since you went first, I'll take the lead on this one. Part of it is just getting your product out in front of people. One really cool thing about Good Life Brewing, we were the first brewery in Bend, Oregon to can our beer. So with that, we were kind of able to reach the masses a little quicker. and it threw a lot of people off at first in the early 2010s, and because not a lot of people were canning beer. Canned beer always had that perceived perception of tasting like aluminum, and then when they would try our brand and they realized, oh, it's easier to pack your trash in and out. One thing about Good Life is our tagline is cheers to the good life and adventurous sales. So we're always wanting to drink our beer while we're out doing something we love. So we had a lot of people at first who were just like, again, bottled beer over canned beer, it's way better. And once they finally tried the brand, tried those beers, they realized, okay, maybe times have changed since my dad's age or grandpa's age, if you will. And it just goes a long way trying to be able to reach that new generation, that new market. And again, it's all about getting that product in hand. And now with the can craze that has happened, especially since the pandemic, you're walking around with a billboard in your hand. So it's pretty cool.
Oh, 100%. And like understanding visibility, where you're at, people wearing your merch, people wearing your hat, and that's so cool. I remember the one time, and before I answer the question, we were all sitting at Pure Project's tasting room, and we're a small company. Now we have 5 tasting rooms, which is kind of weird. I started when we only had like 13 employees, but we were like watching ESPN, and like someone had a Pure Project hat in like St. Louis's baseball stadium, and we're just like, are we famous? And
Yeah.
it was for a split half a second. We're like, there's people who like our beer in the Midwest. That's so freaking rad. So it was a really cool moment. But
You're like,
for the people who
we did it.
yeah, no, right? We did it. So for the companies that are slowly growing, and even for the people who've been in the game for 25, 35, 50 years, whatever it may be, just go back and say, why did we start this again? You know, your company should be built on pillars. That's what we call them. Sustainability, community, beer as seen as an agricultural product, attention to detail. If your company doesn't echo that in every facet of the game, from your merchandise, if you're sustainable, where are you sourcing your merchandise? 95% of our merchandise is either organic kind or recycled bottles or recycled material. We actually teamed up with Pride Bites. You see them as like that plush dog can. And we really wanted a dog toy, and for our new beer called Rove, which is actually featured with Brivana. And we said, can you do it? And do you have any like recycled material? Like just something a little bit more sustainable? And they said, right now we don't. And they checked in with us 2 weeks later and said, hey, we found a vendor, we could totally do it. You'd be the first company to use this recycled material, but could we still do it? And we're like, yep, that's exactly what we wanted to hear. So try to hit that in every facet of your game. If you can, like for us, attention to detail, those cans, when you get a Pure Project beer, check it out. It's actually textured. There's so much more thought into the way we present our beer that go above and beyond. So let's say you're a German style brewery, lean into that. Look at proper glassware, look into serving techniques, look into proper verbiage that would echo and resemble a German style brewery. If that's your thing, if that's your shtick. If you're the more crazy, fun, go lucky, pour it into like a bowl, which is back channel. Pour it into like a little vase and present that on social media. But whatever echoes to what your company wants, lean into it, baby. Just lean into it as hard as you can, because you have to stand out and you have to be genuine. Kind of like what Brian was saying, be genuine, be honest. Your integrity is everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like whether you have like 5 employees or 50 employees, if you have those core values or those core pillars or that kind of brand that you kind of subscribe to, just making sure that is always key and that's always center to everything you do. It doesn't really, matter how many people there are in that group. So it's really cool.
Yeah, I always think of I'm a huge fan of Sierra Nevada, as I think most people. I don't think I've ever heard somebody be like, I don't like them, but I remember going to the brewery in Mills River, North Carolina, and the tour starts with them telling the story of Ken Grossman founding a company and why they started it. And you could see that history of why Ken did that in 1980 reflected in this tour that was happening in 2019. and you could see what seemed like the same passion that Ken had to start a brewery when there weren't many other craft breweries, reflected in the tasting, in the tour guide's words, and in the tasting room, and even with the, you know, one of the prestigious breweries in the company that has hit levels of growth that everybody wishes they could get to, you still saw those values reflected in something as simple as a tour or a taproom interaction. And I think that's a real testament to what you're both saying.
Oh yeah, totally. And like even to this day, you look at Sierra Nevada's social media where when they're doing celebration and they have a full-on video of how they select their wet hot beers. And you're just standing there like, oh yeah, that's right, they do make a beer, but I totally forgot beer comes from like a plant. The hops come from a plant. You're just sitting there like, oh yeah, they're trying to get the best of the best. That's right, they're Sierra Nevada. They've been doing this for a long time. And just small things which kind of relate to what the beer is about, but not really. Just if it talks about to your pillars, your core values, dude, lean into it. And Sierra Nevada is a great example. And they've been one of those that I was recently talking to a guest that they've kind of also been taking a modern take. They still keep their core with pale ale, but hazy little thing, hazy big thing. I remember they did Otra Vez, which was a Goza. It didn't work too well, but hey, you have to keep trying, keep hitting it, try to stay relevant and stick to your core values at the end of the day.
I will say, growing up in Yuba City, California, right near Chico, I grew up sneaking, Sierra Nevada pale ales from my stepdad's fridge. And I remember the first time I tried it, I was like, what the hell is this? Like, oh, and then here I am now just loving craft beer, and they're pioneers, and I'm coming from a town with Deschutes Brewery, which is basically
Another
second
one.
in line to Sierra, second in line to Sierra Nevada. Ken definitely did it first, and shout out to Ken. But Gary sure as hell made sure Bend, Oregon was put on the map with the Deschutes, and yeah, as you bring up their little hazy thing, it's the number one selling hazy beer in the market. They're constantly pushing that envelope, but they are always staying true to their roots. Whole hops. They don't really deal a whole lot with the extract because they were always a whole hop brewery, and so you just got to love that.
Yeah. So to both of you, what are some things that you notice? Oh, and to everybody in the chat, remember, if you have questions, it could be about our topic tonight. It could be about either our guests' wonderful breweries. It could be about fashionable holiday choices, whatever they are. Throw them into the Q&A section. We'll get to those when we make it to the end of our questions here. But what are some things that you each notice when you visit other tap rooms that let you know, hey, this is the right place I want to be, beyond, just good beer? How can you see that company culture reflected as a customer?
One thing I always see is, the first thing you see when you walk into the brewery is obviously the tasting room. What's the decor? What's the design? What are you going for? Modern? Are you going what I always call the San Diego vibe? No, and it's white walls, very clean, very simple, but it's elegant and it's beautiful. We have a few breweries like that popping up in Bend. In our tasting room, it's pillared with recycled, reclaimed barn wood. That's one of the first things I always see. Second is merchandise. And Chris, as you were speaking on earlier, how much recycled material you guys are able to repurpose and reuse. That's fantastic, especially for a brewery who's pushing those, that stigma or culture. So those are the first things that, to me personally, pop out. And then obviously second is when you sit down at the table or go to the bar to order a beer, how educated are your bartenders or beer tenders? Do they know what they're talking about? Or if you have 4 lagers on tap, do they know the difference between, a Helles style lager or a Pilsner or an American? Little things like that. That's what stands out to me.
Yeah. Merchandise is big. Like for me, when you walk in, and it's kind of like, and this is very simple. And if there are people who work in the service industry and tuning in and or just simply the fans, where like you walk in and you hear that like just welcoming energy of like, hello, welcome in. that simple. You hear it at a Starbucks, you hear it at most restaurants, and you're just like, oh, hello, welcome in. We'll be with you in a second. That small attention to detail, you've already introduced yourself. There's been places where you walk in and people have their hands crossed and they're leaning back, and you're just like, am I bothering you? I'm so sorry, I'm actually here. So just think about languages, audio, think about lighting. I always look at like how clean the tables are. You know, if it's one of those, like, you think of when you work at a brewery, think of this as your own home where you're presenting yourself. You are working as a team to create an experience. Brewers make the beer, staff, front of the house staff creates the experience. They are the ones who deliberated. This is how you wanted it to be experienced. So like, if the tables aren't clean, if the things aren't wiped down, you could see a really awesome beer tender that's like, hey, welcome in. Let me quickly wipe this down for you. You're good to go. At that point, you've already sold me. If you want to go above and beyond,
Yeah.
when you're presenting the beer, if your glassware has labels out when
Label
you're serving
out.
the beer, and you're just like, holy smokes, this feels different. And bathrooms, it's so hard to keep that bathroom clean. I hate when there's a dirty bathroom and just like there's paper towels all over the floor. You know what? Okay, fuck it. Sorry for cursing. I'm gonna clean this all up, grab a paper towel, clean it up, and say, I really don't want the next person to come in and say, this place is a pigsty. I don't know why I'm even paying $9 a beer for this. So those are kind of the major things. Give them that welcoming energy, logos out, nice glassware, and the confidence. What is education in a brewery? It's confidence. If your back of the house talks to your front of the house, that's going to create confidence. They're going to feel more confident. They're going to be able to present the beer a little bit better. And you're just going to say, you guys know your stuff. This is actually pretty cool. This is a cool experience.
No, I agree. My title at the brewery, director of beer sales, and I swear every time I'm in that bathroom, we have a single bathroom at our brewery, and every time I'm in there, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take 2 more minutes. I'll take the trash out just to make it sure it's a fresh bag, even if it's half full, because it does fill up fast. Tom, you wrote in the comments, a lot of places don't know how to put a good head on beer. Oh my God. Absolutely. There's so many places you go. I'm not calling anybody out where they'll fill that pint glass to the brim because they don't want you to think you're getting robbed. But I worked at a brewery locally in town, and that brewmaster, Larry Sador, formerly of Crux and Deschutes, he actually taught me, he's like, those are the flavor bubbles. You have to have a proper head on a beer. So as a beer nerd, I always judge on that. You know, I hate to see those beers just get poured to the brim and all that's flowing out because they're like, oh, you're losing out on 2 ounces. Meanwhile, I'm like, you're like, I don't know, I'm just missing out on so much of this beer, you know. And again, the brewers put so much heart and energy into these brands. They need to be served properly.
Yeah, for sure. So Mason, you are the director of sales and bathrooms, your new title.
Yeah. Yes, they're a director of BS, you know.
There you go. And Chris, off of what you said too, I feel like it's this idea of like, you have pride in the product, and if you have pride in the company culture, you're going to create this experience that you're really proud of. I think that's really important. I liked how you were phrasing it about that confidence that you have in your company and in your product and in your experience. It's so important. So we have some good questions from the chat, and I'm going to start with this one that's really related to the beer that we're drinking tonight. This is a collaboration brew, which we mentioned. So Matt has a question. What is the benefit that breweries reap from doing collaborations with other breweries, especially when they're across the country from one another? He says he was in San Diego where Modern Times is. He might have missed it, but he doesn't remember seeing this beer around town. So kind of what is that benefit that breweries might be hoping for?
Ooh,
Brian,
well,
do you want to go first?
yeah.
Or Mason, sorry.
Either or. Collaboration beers, which is actually funny. We're working on our first collaboration elf for the first time in a long time. It brings out different regions. It introduces you to new markets or markets you've been into, but you might not, it's not your hometown market. And then also, it's just the camaraderie of the beer industry. At the end of the day, we're all friends. We all really get along. Don't get me wrong. We have a few powerhouses, so-called craft breweries, which we can always all team up on. owned by the big dogs. But you know what? At the end of the day, they are making great beer too. So one thing to me is it's that friendly value. You're bringing friends together, and it's not a competitive. It's for how many breweries there are in America, as we've talked about earlier. It's not that competitive. You know, we're not going out trying to take each other down. We're trying to always grow and help grow each other. So that's one really fun thing about collaboration beers to me. And then you also get to just sit down with another team of people who might have different ideas of thinking, different ways of brewing, and you got to pick each other's brains. You know, on the brewing side, I sat there in meetings and watched two head brewers just completely geek out on beers and styles and malts and hops, where I understand all that, but I'm going to geek out on the marketing side and the sales side. And we talk about how do we do better on the distribution side of things? How do we do better marketing? So it's really a full blown collaborative effort of just friends getting together and having a good time and really bringing craft beer back to its roots of brewing good beer with good friends for a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, I think that's where the craft beer segment is extremely unique, where you have people coming in from brewery tours where they bounce around and they're like,
Right.
collaboration with another brewery, like, aren't they your competitor? And that's the funny part. But I always found that super funny. But that's a really key important aspect of the craft beer world, because the main focus is working together to learn from each other to create better beer. So when you do collaborations, ideally you're learning techniques, you're sharing techniques so that the standard and the bar is then raised higher. Another thing my mom always told me is like, Chris, you can have friends all around, but the friends that you choose are friends that reflect who you are as a person and your values.
Nice.
My mom always said that to me. So be very conscious of which breweries teaming up with which brewery, which companies teaming up with which company. Is it meaningful, or is it just kind of like, we're there, but we just threw a label on there? Because you'll start noticing, hey, why does that company's kind of a weird company? Like, there's nothing good about them. Why are they always teaming up with them? Oh, it's because they have a lot of fans.
Right.
Well, you can make more meaningful collaborations, making honest friendships. And again, the whole purpose behind collaborations, and everyone's like, oh, it's marketing. So you see someone like mashing out, but the whole purpose is to raise that standard. You know, Modern Times was releasing not that many lagers. Someone was mentioning about Blazing World. Fortunate Island was one of them. Black House Stout. They never really made lagers. You know who makes really bitchin' lagers? These guys.
Yeah.
And when you work together, learn some techniques, you become better, and you pass that along. So Modern Times really doesn't make that many lagers. So to see their name on this, and I think they made a version there too. And also, and the final thing is, let's say you're a big fan of Fair State and you say, I'm a loyal fan of Fair State. I trust what they put out. I believe in their company culture. You see them on a collaboration and you're just like, who are they friends with? I've not heard of that brewery out in Northern New York. I got to go check them out, or Southern California. And that kind of makes you excited about that. So when you go to San Diego, Rochester, New York, I see a couple of people talking about like Trogs, which is where I'm from. You kind of get geeked out of like, you know them too? You know what? I got to go visit them. That's cool.
Yeah, it's such a community.
Mm-hmm.
It is. And I mean, as a brewery we're going almost 12 years strong now. And I'm not gonna lie, we definitely had a few of those. We just did the collaboration to do the collaboration, and we've been a lot more picky over the last few years, it's really fun to be able to kind of get back into that, because we've realized a lot of times, I mean, we're a little bit bigger of a brewery than we've got a 30-barrel brew system. So a lot of times it's like, oh, we just kind of got used in that. And so it's fun to get back to the heart of it and team up with people with the same ideas, the same culture, the same values that you want your brewery to be perceived as well. So do I hear a Good Life Brewing and Pure Project collaboration in the mix?
That's what we do here. Bring people together.
We
Here's a
build bridges.
Great follow-up question from Martin. Have any of you ever collabed with a non-beer company? We've seen that here a lot in Chicago. Revolution did a collab with Garrett Popcorn, and Noon Whistle did a collab a few years ago with Planters Peanuts.
Oh, nice.
So
We have a couple. One of our most, I mean, it's one of our core IPAs. It's called Special Sauce, and that is a collaboration with G Love and the Special Sauce out of Philadelphia.
No way.
So we were actually talking to Garrett earlier today. We just sent him a fresh batch to make sure, he had his approval on it. We do have a little venue here at our brewery, so we got him pretty drunk one day after he played a show, and he was like, let's brew beer together. And it's been going like almost 4 years strong now. So we've done a few different brands, but we've kind of settled on this one, and it's in our core lineup. It's awesome. Another really fun one we've done is we've paired up with not local, but Oregon-based wineries, and we're doing hybrid wine ales. So where we're actually blending fresh pressed grape juice before it's fermented into wine. So we're getting grapes from their estate, blended from them, mashed from them, taking it home in their barrels, blending it in with our beer, and then that following year we turn around and use those barrels that we just got with their grape juice and re-ferment that same beer in it. So we've got a Pinot beer, which is a Pinot Ale hybrid, and a Peach Chardonnay. We're out right now, both hybrid wine ales, and a little higher ABV. When you're introducing grape and some Brettanomyces, you get slightly tart, you get slightly sweet, but it's a lot of fun. And that's blending two different alcohol cultures in the world. But as the wineries always tell us, it takes a lot of beer to make good wine. So we'll leave it at that.
They're just sitting there drinking beer as they're making the wine.
Yeah, I've been there during harvest, and you know what? They are some of the most educated people I've ever met, but man, they do know how to throw down a few lagers. That's for sure.
I feel like that's any collaboration brew day too. I went last year, I had an amazing experience with the Pink Boots Society here, where we were doing our Pink Boots brew day. And that's, for those who don't know, it's like a organization of women in the beer industry, and they have a proprietary hop blend every year. We do a brew day together. So there were women from like probably 12 different breweries, and everyone just like brought things to share, like different mixed 4-packs from their breweries. And we just had like this lineup, and everyone was just sharing each other's beer, and it was amazing. We did make beer as well, but there was a lot of beer that got drunk.
That's again some of the best part about those collab days. Chris, you did bring up a good point. There's a few where you just see it's all about getting that quick photo of us mashing out or maybe adding the hops in. So it means a lot more when you sit down for those hours and collaborate, and you're smelling those hops and malts and tasting it to what you really want to brew. And it's fun when we're putting together, new styles and hybrid ales that as far as we know, hasn't really been replicated, or it's just now starting to see one. But yeah.
Absolutely.
Chris,
Yeah.
Same question. Peer Project, what non-brewery collaborations?
Just want to jump off. I think right now you can purchase, if anyone's a home brewer here, you can purchase that Pink Boots Society hop blend through YCH. Each year it changes. They normally do a hop rubbing session during the Great American Beer Festival in Denver, Colorado. It's a fun one, and then they eventually choose it. All proceeds go to Pink Boots, which goes into scholarships for women in beer, women and non-binary in beer, wine, and mead. But I think I kind of just jump off of what Mason was mentioning, is like, how cool is it that you have the beer people in this circle, and then kind of like a Venn diagram, you have the wine people, and you create that hybrid, or maybe coffee, or maybe mead, or whatever it may be. You can create new audiences, and you geek out about the same thing, which is just simply fermentation. So do all those wine collabs. This week we have a collab coming out with Black Sears. They're out of Napa Valley here in California. They gave us a ton of their pressed, which is called pumice, pressed skins of Cabernet Franc, Cabernet Sauvignon. They then shipped it down here to San Diego. We created this really rustic golden ale, let it ferment solely with the pre-existing yeast found on the skins of the grape because they make organic biodynamic wine. Press it just like you would with wine, let it sit in Bordeaux barrels for a year, and then re-fermented it with Brettanomyces. Super rad. Lean's kind of like rosé. We've done a collaboration with Lost Cause Meadery. They make world-class mead here in San Diego. For us, at the end of the day, when it comes to like non-brewery collaborations, it's always going to go back to the farmers. Every year we source during the season, like in season, organic strawberries from a local farm called J Organics. This year we supported and picked up 15,000 pounds of organic strawberries to make in 5 different of our beers, and people lose their minds. Like, it's fresh, whole organic strawberries picked off the plant, used in the beer within 12 hours. There's nothing like it. And then once it's out of season, everyone comes in like, I brought my growler, and you're just like, it's not in season. So we'll make it again next year. And having seasonality, having that ability to work closely with your farmers, and they come in and they say, hey, that's the farmer that actually plants the strawberries or blueberries, or we source a bunch of different fruits from them. But I think that's kind of more of our alley. I wish we did a collaboration with G Love. He's actually one of my favorites.
Hey, we're working on getting them to play up at our brewery this year, so I'll send you an invite. You got to.
Yo, let me know. I have a friend that lives out in Bend, and I gotta go visit. Honestly, sooner than later.
Bend is sick. Bend is really
Love it.
sick.
Definitely had some fun with Brian when he was in here town last. That's for sure.
I mean, your brewery is just so wonderfully located. There's so many wonderful businesses that you can go to right around there. Specifically one that's right across the street from where you are.
I think we talked about that last time. Things go up in smoke here. We'll leave it at that.
So, thank you both so much for joining us. Before we get out of here, Chris, anything to plug?
Thank you so much for your time. Like many of you said in the chat, I have some catching up to do, so I'm going to be sharing those with my staff and my fiance. Finally, make this year a year that you go into beer education. Oh, and thank you, Brian and Julie, for sending me out this box. May this be a year for beer education. Many different outlets. Cicerone has some awesome YouTube playlists. Check those out. If you're if you identify as women, non-binary, work in the fermentation industry, highly recommend signing up for Pink Boots. It's a great organization. Get back into home brewing, become a beer judge. There's so many really great outlets. I highly recommend it. Make this your year where you're like, hey, you know what? I'm going to level up. I'm a fan, but I could become a better fan and a more knowledgeable beer taster. We have some off flavors classes being introduced at the end of this month. So if you're in San Diego, swing by. And follow Pure Project at Pure Brewing. And you can follow me on social media if you want. My name is Chris, the Beer Educator. Besides that, make beer fun, have fun with it, echo into tradition. And if it's something you're passionate about, lean into it. This is also a really great beer. And the last thing I'm going to say is, did you know that American lagers back in the day were way more expensive to make and were never seen as a cheap product? Back before like tax rebates on like agriculture, it was harder. It was more expensive to make a corn lager due to the price of corn. And it was seen as a brewing achievement that Anheuser-Busch or Anheuser used 6-row barley in beer instead of the 2-row barley. And it actually won an award for lager in Europe in like 1946 or something like that. But yeah, check that out. It's at the Beer Bible. There's a segment on the Beer Bible by Jeff Allworth.
Yeah. God, Jeff's a great guy. Yeah.
Mason, anything to plug?
Guys, you know, one thing we say at Good Life: live every day to the fullest. Live forever in a day. Cheers to the good life. Speaking of fun lagers, we are coming out with a new one this year. I'll plug that real fast. High Altitude. It is our American premium lager Cheap, affordable, but locally made with local resources. Nothing's outsourced outside of, Oregon. So that's a fun beer that, we're really excited about. But other than that, again, yeah, just continue to educate yourselves on the beer culture. I started off just being a beer nerd, and now I'm helping run a multi-million-dollar brewery. So it's pretty fun and pretty crazy what beer education can get you into. And also, lastly, continue to subscribe to your Brewvana boxes, because we absolutely love working with these guys, and I always have the best time hopping on these podcasts. So I wanted to thank you, Brian and Julie, for hosting us, and you guys, again, thank you for letting me hop in a few days late. Sorry I missed the passed out day, but again, I was busy picking up the tab for all of my brewers and staff, so I appreciate it. We definitely had a great night that night. In fact, everybody. Gary, I'll talk to you later about the Bengals and Browns. All right. No, but everybody else, yeah, I had a great time, and everybody at the brewery right now, I'm right next door in my office. They were just ecstatic that we get to continue to do this partnership with you guys. So
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's awesome to hear.
Echoing what Chris said, everybody that's in the chat, everybody that is having this much enthusiasm about beer, every one of you can pass the certified beer server
Oh yeah.
exam. I have no doubt in my mind, and I'm going to commit to it right now. I've been talking about it with people at my new job, but this year I'm going to pass the certified Cicerone. I've been a CBS for quite
Nice.
some time, but we will commit to that right now.
There it
Inspired
is.
by the words that Chris said, and inspired by Mason, inspired by Julian, inspired by all of you in the chat there. I'm going to pass that certified Cicerone this year.
There's
love
Brian's
that.
New Year's goals.
Make it happen.
That was my New Year's goal last year. It didn't happen this year, Brian. I'll fist bump you that one.
Let's
Do it.
okay. We'll find the testing, in-person testing that is in between North Carolina and Pittsburgh,
There you go.
and we'll go.
But you
and
can't
take it
take
together.
that one drunk like you can take the CBS, right? Not that I took the CBS.
You got to be.
when I was
You got to be.
drunk,
That's an in-person test still. Yeah.
Yeah. They probably would frown upon you walking in there intoxicated.
But they would be
anyways.
impressed if you passed.
Brian, if someone else can do it, you can do it. That's all I'm gonna say.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Awesome.
coming from our advanced Cicerone down there, he knows what he's
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah, nothing to shake a stick at there. Only 140 some of those in the world. But anyways, speaking of those, thank you for joining us for another stream of the 12 Beers of Christmas. We're so happy you joined us, and we would love to have you back tomorrow, because we're going to be talking to yet another advanced Cicerone, and this advanced Cicerone is an amazing artist that is doing such great things with her art and beer education, and Julie and I are both so excited for this conversation. So please come back tomorrow and join us. We got 2 more nights of this. Shout out to the chat. Thank you all so much. Shout out to Adrian. Thank you for moderating. And again, thank you, Mason and Chris, for joining us. And Julie, thanks for co-hosting. See you tomorrow.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
Take care of yourselves.